Hello, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. No, it's such a wonderful honor to be able to be the couple that is speaking on this very important topic on sexual intimacy. One thing that I've learned is any topic that touches on sex, it kind of attracts a lot of attention and interests. And I was talking to one of the brothers, I won't name him, and he told me today that sex is his favorite topic. So I know it's quite an interesting topic, and I have to confess that I was feeling more like it's the kind of a topic you want to discuss when you are seeing each other. You see the non-verbals, where you need to laugh, you laugh, where you need to cry, you cry. But I will blame all this to COVID. So, sexual intimacy. Now, the issue of sex, again, especially in a Christian marriage, is kind of broad. And you can't have what you need to cover in 1 hour. But also, you're in different groups. You have those who are kind of in life at that stage. You have those who are in the mid stage. You have those who have moved a bit, you know, they've even crossed the menopause stage. So we are all in different levels, and the needs are diverse, they are different. So today, we'll definitely try and feature more on what has kind of come out lately as a serious problem in many marriages. And that is lack of sex in many marriages. And definitely today our focus is on us, you know, Christian marriage. So you can, I guess you can see the screen. I'll try and have the slides running. I have my notes here. So sexual intimacy is what distinguishes between what we call a romantic relationship and what they call a platonic friendship, where there is no, you know, sexual connection, there is no, you know, romance. So that is what is known as platonic relationship. And a sexless marriage is defined as a marriage with little or no sexual activity between the partners. And when we say little, again, that is relative, and we'll discuss that as we move forward. Now. My slide is not, okay, good. So in Matthew chapter 10, verse 6 to 8, Genesis 1:27, and Genesis 2:24, the Bible says that from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. It goes on to declare, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So reading from that, it seems natural to assume that sexual unit or union is central to that process. Sex bounds us together as husband and wife. And that's why you will always say that sexual union places their relationship in a category apart from any other human relationship. Sex is so key in marriage that when you remove it, you remove such a serious component of that relationship. Paul, in 1 Corinthians 7, 3-5, we won't go through the entire passage, also emphasizes the need for husband and wife to think about the sexual needs of their partners. In other words, Christian spouses should explore ways of giving sexually to each other, you know, to see their union as what we say a ministry or connection, but not just a duty or a chore. Now, there are figures here that have been thrown out there that it is estimated that 15% of married couples did not have sex with their partner in the last 6 months to 1 year. This was done, I think, in 2019. That's a big figure. In fact, part of the reason why I decided we can focus on this topic is I listened to someone on TV and they were saying that if you want to stop having sex, get married. Because, I mean, there are many people who've complained that they've gone for so long without sex. And there are many possible reasons why that happens. So we'll start our discussion today, but going very fast, going through some of the possible reasons that can create that dry spell in a marriage. And one of them are health issues. You know, a person's overall physical and mental health can have a major impact on their libido and desire for physical intimacy. And that is almost beyond them. They need help. They need medical attention. It can also disrupt the physiological process of arousal in both sexes. So these are situations where you find, due to health issues, either the husband or the wife, or even both, are completely not in the mood of sex. To them, it's not fun. To them, actually, to some extent, it can be sort of like a punishment. So they detest it and they don't want it because they don't want to force themselves to something they are completely not feeling like doing. Or you find some people like it when they are tired. Some don't like it when they're tired. So kind of bringing those together and making sure that you're both at the same level takes a bit of time, because you find that you never get the right convenient time to have, to make love as a couple. So if you like it in the morning and you try to initiate in the morning, doesn't go so well because the other person basically prefers it in the evening for different reasons. And the other one is childbirth. You know, women are usually advised by their doctors to forgo sex for some weeks, almost 8 weeks after giving birth. You know, the added stress of caring for the baby, body changes, tiredness, hormonal factors. There are so many factors that affect a woman's libido after having a child. The other one is stress. Excessive stress can wreak havoc on your health, including your sex drive. The stress, hormonal, cortisol can also play a role in lowering your libido. Now, in addition to the physical reasons why stress lowers sex drive, the physiological effects also of stress can leave you tired, and that simply will not give you the desire or the energy for sex. You might not feel like taking that further, or talking to your partner, let alone engaging in sexual activity. And there are many issues that can affect that, your communication. I remember talking to someone the day before yesterday, and he was telling me that he has not talked to his wife for like 2 months and in the same house. So that one, you don't even need to ask whether sex is happening, because if they're not talking to each other, then there's a great possibility that sex is not taking place in that marriage. So conflicts and arguments, negative feelings, whereas probably just perception or conclusion or misjudgment. Punitive behaviors, there could be issues of infidelity, whether actual or suspected, power struggles, pornographic addiction. There are many things that can affect now that communication issue, and by extension, that now will also affect your sex life. The other issue is erectile dysfunction. Now, this is a topic on its own that needs to be tackled later, especially in marriage. Erectile dysfunction is difficulty achieving or maintaining an erection. And that can be difficult to have sex, obviously almost impossible. Men know that this is a challenge with many men. So We'll still discuss briefly, I think, about that later. So when you have that, they call it ED, erectile dysfunction. This is, I think, one of the main causes of lack of sex in a marriage. But we'll also come to realize that erectile dysfunction, it can be a medical case, but also it can be as a result of other issues that are happening in your life. Because you realize that the problem is not down there, the problem is up there. So that can be another main issue that has probably made or created the spell that is there, the dry spell. Another one is a low sex drive. Sometimes, okay, they call it hypo, sexual desire disorder, where there is just no desire. There could be no issue, really, that anyone can pinpoint and say, well, I think you did not talk to me the other day, well, you never kissed me goodnight the other day, or you never sent money to my mother the other day, so I have a problem with you. So it would be none of that. It just purely, there is no desire. Especially menopause, those are issues that, you know, we don't have the authority or the strength to discuss. The women can tell us exactly what happened, but that can be part of it. Another one is medical, medication side effects. Some medicine we take can also affect our lack of sexual desire or lowering the sexual desire. It's hard to really say exactly which medicine, but they say a lot of over-the-counter, you know, and some antihistamines, antidepressants, high blood pressure, some of the medicine, not all, can contribute to that, but also it depends on the person's body and how the body responds to the medicine. We have issues of history of abuse. We have sisters, especially women, who went through, they have a history of abuse, molestation, you know, rape, and those things sometimes they play into the future if they are not assisted well to handle those kind of, you know, experiences. Then you also have life issues. They are generally life issues. So there are a number of different life factors that can also play a role on how frequently people engage in sex with their partner, which includes boredom, tiredness. You could have issues of grief. Maybe you are bereaved, or even you are mourning the loss of something that you really treasure so much, even a job loss. And it depends also on how long that will take. Financial problems, we have issues of aging, we have body image issues. You know, I wrote to a friend of mine out there, and I told him I'm doing a class on sexual intimacy. So do you have a point I can share in the class? He said, yeah, he's retired. He said, no, mine is funny. Just tell them that when you age and you retire, you can't be having sex like you used to before. Because some of us like having sex in the dark because our bodies have changed. And he just kept sharing different things. So I won't tell you who he is, but there are many factors that can play into all these things. Now, so how do we address the issues? The first thing is you look at some of the possible reasons why there's been a dry spell in your sex life, and not just for now, but you can probably some of the reasons in your marriage could not be featuring in the reasons I've shared right now, but you know yourself better. I think marriage is more like parenting. We say there is no magic book, you know, that you can open and it tells you exactly what you need to do. So marriages differ. We are all different because you're married to different people. We have different backgrounds, different levels of spirituality, and many other factors play into that. So how do we address the issue? I think the first step, I would say, is to recognize the signs of a low sex marriage and determine whether a lack of sex is a problem for your marriage. As I said, if my wife and I, we feel like having sex once a week or once or twice a month, and we are completely convinced is okay with us, then that does not become an issue because we have our reasons and we discussed why. We need to, when the frequency is very low, we need to look at why then is that low, but it's not an issue. You can't compare yourself with somebody else and you feel less of a man because then they have sex 4 times a week and you can only afford to have once a week, then there has to be a problem in your marriage. You know, there are many other factors that kick in. So whether you consider a low sex or no sex marriage a problem is entirely up to you and your partner. There is no right amount of sex to have in a marriage, but it needs to be there. What's more important in many cases is whether you are still having physical and emotional intimacy with your partner. You know, as I say, don't worry to compare your marriage with others because every relationship is unique. Every relationship is unique. How you address your relationship with your spouse is different from how somebody else will address their relationship. They say even strong relationships have problems with sex and intimacy, and yet they're still grouped as strong. So it's not necessarily a sign that your marriage is weak or in trouble. So we say lack of sex simply means that we need to talk more and be able to carve out more time to spend together as a couple. Now, I always say, if there's one topic that makes us a very hold back or ashamed to discuss is this issue of sex. Because you realize even with our own spouses, we are not completely free to discuss it. You know, hapo ndo nasikia brothers wanasema nakufa kimwanaume. He's not willing to talk to another friend and he's not willing to talk to the wife. And yet it's a problem that is there that needs to be addressed. And in most cases, if you're not getting help, the problem will not go by itself. It will only persist and it will definitely get worse. So my encouragement first is to understand that a lot depends on what you and your husband agree, but sex still needs to be there. As I said earlier, there's a I think I moved a bit fast. Let me just look at my notes. Yeah, so there are reasons why we need to have a sex talk. Research has found that couples who have strong sexual communication are more satisfied with their sex lives because they talk. There is nothing to them that is beyond what can be discussed. Sex can be as devastating, lack of sex can be as devastating if it's not handled properly as any other issue in your marriage. Could it be finances? Could it be any other issue? Some of the reasons to have a sex talk with your partner could include lack of sexual satisfaction, where one of the partners or both partners feel like, I am not satisfied. You know, we need, you know, this needs to be addressed. Desire to try something new. I know a majority of us as I always say, if there's one area that will never be taught, is this one. Some of us, we had never been involved in any sexual intercourse before we got married. And we praise God for that. You had your wedding, watu wakakula pilau. Then the guy was designated to deliver you somewhere to a hotel in Nairobi. The best he could do is just to get you to the gate. You check in, and there you are with your wife. Now you need to figure out. So you also find probably your partner never had any exposure. So it's both of you to try and discover. And the discovery journey sometimes, in most cases, ends up well, but in some cases does not end up exactly the way it was supposed to. So there you are, you don't know, so you try things and you stick with one. And maybe that one way has been there since, now you're married for probably 20 years. And you're wondering why, you know, there's no excitement. So you could be feeling like you need to spice it up. So hence the need to talk. The issues of sexual dysfunction, as we discussed, this could be there. And both of you or one of you is feeling like, I think there's a need to talk about this. The sexual dysfunction could be what we talked about, the ED, erectile dysfunction. You know, that could be an issue that needs to be addressed. And you both agree it needs to be addressed. For men, for women is what they call orgasmic disorder, where the woman cannot reach orgasm, or drying up, not lubricating, you know, and all those other things. And you've tried different things, but you feel like, no, we need to talk about it. Change in libido also can be another issue that may necessitate a sex talk between you and your husband, or you and your wife. Lack of intimacy or need for more affection, as we learn later that sex is not the end game. You know, the end game is intimacy. So if that road you are traveling has a problem, then you may just feel like we need to pull aside and have a talk. Feelings of sexual rejection, probably trying to initiate, and the other person tend to always have an excuse for why you cannot be able to have sex. That can be another issue of family planning. So there are numerous reasons that would need you guys to sit down and discuss. And part of the reason why I know, you know, if I look at today, I think I'd seen about 230 something couples that are listening. And I have to say, perhaps half of us, 250, I have to say at least half of us may see this as a need in the marriage. The other half need to listen because there'll come a time where it will be a need. So, reasons to have a sex talk. So now let's discuss then when to talk about sex. What is highly encouraged? You see, there's a time and place to discuss sex with your spouse. And waiting for the right moment to address the topic can help you get around some of these feelings of discomfort and awkwardness that are common during sex talks. Because even right now, if you know, you can ask yourself, have you ever had that talk where you exclusively just talked about where your sex life is? What are the possible busters of sex in your marriage? What do you need to do? And how do you need to monitor progress? You know, you'll find that out of the 230, who are online now, perhaps very few of us have done that. And even those who don't have a problem with frequency, probably there are other issues to do with sex that you still feel like if you can only improve in ABCD, you'll perfect that particular component, very significant component of your marriage. So pick a neutral location. Do not talk about sexual problems in your bedroom or at bedtime. And I'm talking about these issues. I'm not talking about, the usual sex, what do you call it, talks you have when you are getting yourself ready. I'm talking about when you have to address issues that have to do with a problem in your sex life. It's better not to have it when you're going to bed because it can easily mishandled, let me put it that way. So it's better when it's somewhere out, having probably either it's a dinner or a special occasion where the environment is conducive enough to bring up such a topic without creating any blame or any defensiveness. Avoid post-sex talks. Don't finish making love. While you're plateauing, for some of us who remember what we talked about, you ejaculate, you have a period of plateauing, which you are still relaxed, holding each other. Then you start saying, you know what, Mama Shiko, I'm not happy with this sex life. Mama Shiko is wondering, what's going on? You just finished. And you create another picture that, that probably makes the other person feel like they're being blamed for that. So don't do it at that time. So you need to create another time where these issues can be addressed. They can be introduced and addressed without necessarily creating a problem or defensiveness. Because the last thing you want to do is to create defensiveness when you're discussing this issue. You want to come across as one who really is part of the problem and you want to be part of the solution. Avoid blindsiding your partner. We love surprises. We love surprising and we love telling people how, man, I did not want you to know, but I felt like this is the right time to discuss this topic. From what most experts in this area say, that it's good when you let the other person know and be part of preparing for that talk. Normally, we are encouraged not to start by saying, we need to talk. Because that by itself does not go so well. It does not other well with the man or the woman. I think we must talk. That alone doesn't go well. So, anyway, the other details that we may not cover today, but very quickly I can say for such, we just say, I've been thinking of how we can improve or spice up our sex life. And I was hoping we can get time, perhaps over the weekend, Nini, and come up with different ideas of blah, 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 blah. So, and let the other person be part of that. So by the time you're meeting, no one is feeling like you're blaming them, because if you start saying something that makes the other person feel blamed, they start also telling you areas that they are probably not happy with you. And at the end of the day, it's another war. Now the problem shifts from lost sexual intimacy to now other marital issues that you don't necessarily need to bring up at that particular time. So that covers now when to talk about sex. So let's now move on how to talk about sex. There are some steps you can take to help make conversations about sex easier for both of you. And again, some of these can also apply in other areas of your life, not necessarily sex. It's just the same principle. But for now, how to talk about sex. Let's talk about sex. And I say that, I remember a song by Salt and Pepper for the older generation. The first thing is to start slow. Have a solid blaming. If you think you'll ever give any hint of blaming, then don't even have that talk, because it may not go well. You can assert a few ideas that may mean the other person will need to change, but in a completely different way, without feeling like, hey, I think if it was not you, this would not be an issue. Skip criticism and focus on things you can both do to make your sex life more fulfilling. So start slow. Someone said, is the way you may ask your husband, what will they take for dinner? Will you take pilau today for dinner? That kind of tone is what now you can use to introduce this topic of sex talk. The second one is focus on intimacy. Remember that affection and intimacy are just as important as the frequency of sex. There are ways to build intimacy and feel more connected beyond intercourse. So be sure to talk about your needs for other types of affection as well, in order to build up your sexual desires. Because as I say, sex is not in isolation somewhere by itself. You build it using other areas. The other one I said is the skip surprises. It is important that you both of you are on the same page. So you should always initiate those conversations, first before surprising or making any surprises to your partner. The way you talk about what you both enjoy and fantasies you might have. If you decide to do some stuff, then talk together. You may decide to spice up your sex life. Talk together, agree. But also some areas you're not sure about. Don't just trust the two of you. If you're not sure about you have a discipling partner, if the discipling couple are not able to seek for ways just to get confirmation. Because we live in a world where there's internet and there are all these things being thrown out there as solutions. So you can't just be taking any other solution, and you don't want to gamble with your sex life. So always be sure. So the other one is express yourself. Talk with one another about your expectations, your fears, your desires, your concerns, and be honest. It is critical to talk about your innermost feelings about these. But again, the key word is not in a blaming way, but in a way that creates teamwork and makes the other person and your person and you as a person feel the value. You both add value into that relationship. So talk about your sex life, what you like, what you don't like, and what you'd like to try. There are many things you can try to make sure that we are not monotonous, we are not boring, and we look forward to. Do some things that will create that anticipation. Also ask yourself, do some things make you uncomfortable when you guys are making love? Are there things your spouse could do that might make sex better? What brings you sexual fulfillment? And how often would you each like to have sex as a married couple? Okay. New is for you. Keep sex fresh and adventuresome. You know, excite your partner by doing the unexpected, but you know your partner, you know the line not to cross. As I said, don't approach sex in the same way or do the same things in the same place. Since some of us, I said, have been married for so many years, it helps a lot to spice it up. Now, sometimes focusing on having more sex will get you less. As I had said earlier, sex is not an end in itself. Sex is a means to an end. The end is deeper intimacy, a stronger connection, and a healthier relationship. That's the ultimate goal. Focusing on other ways to increase intimacy, strengthen your connection, and grow your relationship for sex. So we are trying to deal with the root problem, then automatically it's fine to your marriage. And as most of some of the questions you'll continue asking yourself, what are some activities that make you feel close to one another? When do you feel closest and most connected to your spouse? When do you feel most loved? Okay? Sex is equals give and take. These are things we've learned in many different ways. Sometimes you may not have sex when your spouse does not feel like it. Sometimes you might have sex when you don't feel like it. Understanding these and respecting each other will help create some sort of compromise. So these, again, can be discussed well when you're having your talk. And I know, as I said, this is where some of the issues can be addressed. Like now, as I said, that you can have one partner who really wants to, and the other partner is either going some of the reasons we discussed, and some of them could be as serious as erectile dysfunction. That now you can understand there is a problem here that needs to be fixed. So the other partner also will need to understand that I need to be patient with my man. You know, I know this is an issue that some women may not understand. It's like, now unajifanya. The man is saying, man, imekataa kuamka. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Kwani shida nini? You know, and the pressure alone created there can make someone dread that time when they're going to bed. That if he's going to face that kind of pressure, you know, even the thought of knowing that you'll be subjected to that pressure, of making sure there is an erection and the erection has refused, that by itself creates anxiety. You know, it's more like what we say, panic attack. Panic attacks become worse because you're already afraid you'll have a panic attack. So when you're afraid of having a panic attack, the anxiety grows high and you have a panic attack. So the issue of, so these are some of the issues that can be discussed. You see, when sex is weaponized or becomes a demand or an entitlement, you are not going to have a good time. If that's frequently the situation, we need to talk about that and get help. Because that only now makes it become punishment. And sex is meant to be joyful, you know? It needs to be what the key word that used to be there, mutual and consensual. So if I have to do it because I'm being forced or I'm afraid this person will do ABCD, or, you know, if I don't do it, he'll not send money to my mother at the end of the month. He'll not pay school fees, or he'll not buy me this. then now you end up having not so much the sex as it's designed to be in the scriptures, but it just becomes another tool of punishment that is not godly and should not be that way. We all know the way women are wired. They value sex, or they perceive sex completely different, because to them it means more than just sleeping together. It's a connection. And that connection cannot be there if the things I've talked about are present. Keep sex fun and playful. Sex is serious business, but if it feels more like work than fun, it's less likely going to happen. You know, playing together helps you associate fun and good vibes with your spouse. And that's a good thing. So sex needs to be fun, needs to be wow, where somebody is looking forward to. See your mechanical Gioni. I know we discussed this last time when we talked about sex in marriage and we were dealing with different issues. You don't just sleep, or you don't talk to each other for days, or minimal talk. There is no romance at all. Gioni, you are asleep. The person who has not been talking to you at some point, unasikia tu anakuguza. Pinduka. Even the way they tell you, at that time, there's no romance. There's nothing like babe or honey, or at least at a mama boy, pinduka, that may sound better. But the guy is pinduka. How do you expect that to be fun? And, you know, sex has been done in a way, it was created in a way that there are a lot of emotions involved, and we have to play it that way. I'm almost done. Have check-ins. As I said, let's face it, your sex life is going to suffer if your relationship is suffering or on the rocks. So have check-ins. Check-ins are moments where you go out and you talk about the other issues in your relationship. Yeah, it's difficult to have a great sex life if you have all these different issues that you need to address. So having regular check-ins help you deal with other issues. They could be peripheral, but they still have an effect in the central issue of sex. So the more you're addressing these issues, could it be finances issues or to do with kids, and the more you are having a good time, the better your sex life is. I think most of us remember the bank, what do you call it? The love bank. The love bank account, where when the account is high, you are happy and things are natural and are happy, you know. But when the love bank is low, then your sex life by extension will also get affected. So have check-ins. When it comes to sex and the intercourse, it's important to ensure that the focus lies on being sexual rather than simply just doing the act. And in that case, the mind becomes the most important sex organ. The mind, you know, sex organs are not complicated organs. The penis and the vagina, they are not complicated. Now, kidney and the heart are complicated organs. So instead, the most important sex organ is in the body, is the brain and the mind, or the mind. Very important sex organ that is critical for intimate interpersonal sex. For you cannot have an erection if you have things disturbing you. You know, I mean, I don't know. I know these are things you can say, they may sound comical, but you can't go and your boss tells you are fired and you walk out of that office with an erection. I'm just trying to exaggerate here. What goes on in your mind, what you process in your mind is what will help now communicate the message down. If you're peaceful and appreciate this person and you really value this person and you're attracted to this person, you are assured of a great sex life. You know, but if your mind is not peaceful, that's how the mind operates, you know, and especially for men, that's how we operate. You know, the mind can be quite confusing. You can see, you can watch, I had people trying to understand the mind. You can watch athletics or even tennis, and you will see women with very short, almost like panties, but as they're playing, and you can see the entire thigh, there is absolutely nothing in your mind. But they can put on a mini skirt that covers half of the mind or of the thighs, and that alone can be an issue to a man. Why? Because the mind has room for imagination. That's how the mind operates. And that's how we are told to hold every thought captive and make it obedient to the Lord. Because everything happens in the mind. It is the most important organ when it comes to sex. So if the mind is too preoccupied with hurt, anger, resentment, it won't have the space to consider desire, passion, or love making with your partner. The body will start to reflect the mind's unhappiness, with men losing their erections and also women not being able to lubricate, or the vaginal muscles will fail to relax. And for many of us who are married, when that happens, is not as fun as it's designed to be. If you're trying do sex, but your mind is thinking, I'm so angry at you, and I'm so hurt by you, the sex organs won't work. I remember a brother once sharing how, it was so frustrating, and this can be a very serious issue, where when the act just starts, the erection completely disappears. And we're trying to figure out why. Some cases are medical, they need medical attention, and some they just need to know how to analyze our mind, our cognition, and see whether there's some patterns can be seen to help us reverse that and help the mind to produce what is needed to always have an erection when you're making love. You know, someone says, think erotic things and do erotic, think erotic thoughts and do erotic things. But I think for us as disciples, we also have to define what erotic is. Okay. So, do not be afraid to talk about what you like sexually when you're having those talks and what you don't like. Your comfort level is an important part of having a satisfying sex life. So talk often. As I said, you need to realize that you may need to have a few conversations and not just one long conversation. This is not a one-time conversation. It should be an ongoing discussion and a normal part of our relationship. It has been said that good lovers are made. They are not born. If you truly want your sexual relationship to be all that it can be, then you should take the time to talk with one another. Talking with one another about sex is not optional. Sexual intimacy is a continuing process of discovery. True intimacy through communication is one of the things that can make sex great. Finally, get help. Finally, get help. We sometimes trust that you can handle issues, and we believe and trust that some of the issues that we go through, since they come with a certain shame connotation, you are not free to talk with other people because if you may feel weak for a man. That's what the society has taught us. But by so doing, you are hurting your partner and you're hurting your marriage. Help is out there. And the setup we have in church is one that you can never say you don't know who to talk to. But get help. I know even the person you're going to talk to may probably be going through similar things, or they may not be exactly like yours, but you can form a support group and just inspire each other towards love and good deeds, as you always say. So at this particular time, I'll hand over to my wife to kind of just go through a few points and we will be done. Just sit here.
Good afternoon, disciples. Thank you so much once again for this opportunity. It was really great to see many of us and connect. I'm also grateful for the exercise that we did with Eunice and Kevin. We really appreciate. I know I kept saying maybe after this, so that we don't make it an issue as a couple, why did you get it wrong? Is maybe we can take time to explain what made you prioritize it that way, because that also is an opportunity to learn each other. Because I think there are times when I was thinking, because romance is such a big thing. George is very, very gifted in romance. Yet I think because on a daily basis, there are some priorities, you know, going to work, which means you're caring and loving the family. They are very intertwined, you know. And so when I say work, it is because of his love for the family. So I kept feeling like we might be in that space, take ourselves as couples from the exercise to tell each other, you know, that. So, but that was really nice, Kevin and Eunice. Thank you so much, Mondas, for hosting us. We really appreciate the kind words and everyone else who's here. Now, I think just for me to summarize, I may not have much because I feel like some of these topics are also good when we separate. There are some things you want to talk as women, really, really as women. And I know there are those things that will also be important to talk as men. So I may not say much, but because of time, because I know that we also have Q&A, is maybe to ask ourselves, what is your narrative about sex? You know, what has been your narrative, personal narrative? Because that's where it all starts. My personal narrative and George's personal narrative. And because in that, that's what really founds us. That's what brings the foundation of that we will build on, you know. So where, and then as we write our narrative about sex and that intimacy is where did you get it from? Where is the source? You know, because like George says, as we've grown up, we experienced such as things to do with abuse. Those are some of the clients I see, people who have distorted view of sex because of some of the experiences they've gone through in life, and they've never dealt with the impact. They've never dealt with the impact of the experiences such as rape, you know, or just molestation. You know how you stay with even a relative in the house, and the first introduction as you are young, a young girl, a young man, is you are molested, and maybe probably but from a very trusted person, you know, someone who was very close, a very significant person. And what we say, you go through some trauma when you go through that experience, and that trauma is what is it called? Is stored in a part of your brain and in your subconscious. And because you've never talked about it, you move on with life. But when you go through a moment when you either need to have that intimate time with your spouse, or when this topic is spoken about, your limbic system, that's what we call about. So the executive functioning part of your brain takes a back, and the traumatized part of your brain, which you call mostly the limbic system, takes charge, and you're not rational. It's not you. That part of the brain is very irrational. It operates at an autopilot mode, at a survival mode, because the memories of sex comes back in a very distorted, negative, destructive, unhealthy way, not because of your choice. As much as we'll talk about it in church, all the scriptures we use that are very, very grounding and founding, there is an experience that was so traumatic and that introduced sex to you in a very, very unhealthy way. So when we talk about your narrative, it could be coming from what you saw, even just observing. That we call vicarious trauma. You didn't go through it, but probably you've listened to it. Maybe just as you hear, we talk to people as disciples, we are studying the Bible with people. People talk about the experiences. Probably it's what you heard about someone who's gone through, rape. And you got a vicarious trauma and you never got to get debrief. It's very important that you go through debriefing, especially when something is impacting you negatively. But because right now we are talking about sex, your life narrative is very, very important, because if it's not purified, as much as we will fast and pray and get into those scriptures, the part of the brain is very, very powerful. That's why we have the psychology part that's why we go to school to study psychology, so that you can come and help you clean up that part that was impacted, that needs to be spoken, because you need to speak it, and it can be suppressed with the scriptures. You can't suppress it spiritually. We've got to honor it psychologically, and that's why I like the integrating the medical, the psychology, and the spiritual, where we integrate the three domains or aspects in our lives. It's such a beautiful thing. I think it is very interconnected. So that part of the brain is impacted, and that forms your narrative about sex. So as much as, even right now as we are talking, there could be some of us who are very tensed. As you're becoming aware of your body right now, there's a part of you that is so tensed. Maybe your emotions are feeling resentful. You're resenting this topic, not because you do not wish to be in the space we are talking about today. You even hear that part of your rational mind is hearing, but the bigger part of the irrational mind has taken position, and it's rejecting this information that you really want to hear. And we need to have that healed. Of course, God is ultimate. He is the healer of all the wounds and the hurts we've gone through in life. But he also gives us an opportunity to talk, to express, to go back and say, this is exactly what happened. And I keep being triggered. The reason why it's being triggered is because you've never gone to that, reliving the experience, because it's very painful, it's uncomfortable. Would rather move on and work and move in an autopilot survival mode, and not go to that space of having to relive that experience, because it was very, very devastating as you went through it yourself, or as you had maybe our own children, or even just people you've heard from. So it can be very impactful. So where is your life narrative? And for some of us, we really have it, in place, because we've not gone through much. So it's healthy and great. We really want to appreciate both sides. But I wanted to bring that to our awareness. So really, we want to look at, in this space that George has given us, is how is sex working for me? It's a very good question. Personal awareness is very key. One column, you go, because not everything is bad, but you ask yourself, what is working for me in our sex life? So write all the things that are working for you. The being loved, being desired, being my spouse is doing everything they can to get me, really being in this space. So you can write all the things that are working for you. Then the other column, write what is not working well for you. then again, one of the things that I must say is like I said, what you think about love making is very important. That's your personal narrative. And where is it coming from? Because eventually as disciples, we want us to be founded from God's word. That's ultimate, that's sovereign, that's infinite. I mean, it outlives each one of us. So God's word should be our foundation, but that doesn't mean that you don't have experiences you need to explore. We need to explore some issues that could be taking away that enjoy a full experience that the word of God wants us to experience. When it says Jesus came to give us life and give us in abundance, but Satan wants to steal, kill, and destroy the very, very gift we've been given. But some of those experiences is what is taking away the joy of experiencing full intimacy, So the other thing that you want to ask yourself is that would affect is what we think about ourselves. How do you view? We call it the model of self-concept, and that's more the body image. How do you feel about your body today? I know sisters, like I said, unless you have our own class separately, this becomes a biggie for us, how we feel. Some of us have increased in weight for many, many reasons, but at the same time, how you feel, your view of yourself can become a big block because it really contributes to the confidence, the esteem, and all those moves we keep saying you need to make in the bedroom, whether it's a pole dance, you have a pole in the room and you want to make a dance, or you want to twerk for your husband. All those things, will come in by how you view yourself. And like somebody said to me, that it is not so much the small or the big sized person that sometimes make a difference, because you can be small sized or big, plus size, but it's just how you do it and your view of it and how you go about it that really makes it, great for your spouse, really. It's the attitude in which we have about, that inner gift of sex is the approach in which you give it. Of course, it's always good. Like we say, exercising is good for fitness, especially fitness and exercise and trimming and doing all that you can. But that should not be what stops us from really, really enjoying and making it very special to our spouses. And then it says what we think about our spouses. If it's for women, what we think about our husbands. Because again, George says, sex is from the mind. If we have come out of the space of, like the Bible says, think of what is lovely, what is admirable, because there are so many things that are admirable, that are lovely, that are excellent, that are praiseworthy, that are pure, that are good. There are all those things that you may look at your spouse and become, you feel like you're heating up, your body's heating up, let's go somewhere. Those, we need to put ourselves in those spaces, because opposite of that, where we start now becoming critical of our spouses, always looking at the negative, the body registers all that, And so with time, that arousal is not there, because then that's how the body operates or functions. It is boosted or it declines the boosting depending on our state of mind. So probably some of us, we need to renew some of those romantic spaces, not just sex, the romantic spaces that's where the beginning is, the love bank. Like I said, my husband is very good in romance. A cup of, of coffee. The other day we were relocating my office from where it was to a different location. And have you ever been told, I need to take you somewhere? And you see something like what you see on TV of a house that has been renovated. You've seen it before, and now you're seeing it after. And so this particular day, he says, yes, okay, I had my two friends, colleagues, so we needed to come and see the office. And I had seen this office before. And when I got in, I could not believe it's the office I'd seen before. Now, you can imagine, what would that mean to me as a woman? You know, I was astonished. Everything, every touch he gave in the office for me, I felt like I have nothing to edit as a woman. He's done, exceedingly, like beyond my imagination. And I know there are so many times he's pulled that, and not only to me, but to the children, the 4 children God has given us. He's constantly pulling off the surprise. And I'm not saying this to manipulate him now that he'll feel like, oh my, how do I keep up with this? No. It's got to be genuine. So it's you constantly thinking of the small things, the ones that look insignificant, that your spouse is doing. That's where it starts, it begets. Starting with the little things your spouse has done, has been doing, and becoming very grateful. They look insignificant, but that's what brings about growth. That's what brings about the connection, the appreciation, the bond that you're looking into. Without gratitude of each other, with a little effort, I'm not even talking about big, like what now, I'm talking about my husband, what he did, grand things, but just starting with the small, insignificant kind of looking effort. Let's start from that space. Yeah, and then the other thing we have to become aware of is the self-rejection is very, very impactful when we self-reject, because it starts with me. How do I feel about myself? Like we said, before even the other person affirms me, is how self-accepting am I? What space am I putting on in this life? How am I presenting myself to people, to my husband? What have I done to present myself to myself? Even for me, I can feel I'm sexually attracted to myself, because it starts there. Are you sexually attracted to yourself? Then if you're not even sexually attracted to yourself, so why do you think the other person would be attracted to you? So start from that space. What am I doing to feel myself as appealing, smelling nice, looking nice? The kinds of clothes nowadays, I've gotten my daughters to even give me input on my dressing, because I feel it reaches a point they feel, Mom, you're dressing too old. You're dressing too proper, like too on the extreme proper. All the time you're wearing long clothes, so they have given me a balance. Of course, I have to be careful because, again, I'm in my, whatever age I am, but I think constantly trying to get other people to give us input. But are you attracted to yourself in your character, in your way you look, in the way you're taking care of yourself, in the way you're just keeping yourself? How do you feel? And then now you can go present yourself to your spouse and into the world confidently, because you've done what it takes, sister, to take care of yourself. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to see. I just wanted to share, especially with this issue of gaps. What gaps you'll feel, what's working for you, what's not working for you. I know sometimes your core values, and this is mostly in how you want to do this, how to make your sex life erotic. Some of it comes from your culture, and you're all different. 2 of you are different because your culture sometimes will define this. Your spiritual core beliefs, because sometimes the Bible does not say how to go about it. And it says some things are permissible, but not everything is beneficial. At least that gives us a space to ask ourselves, how beneficial is this, as much as it's permissible. But so we'll come from a point of what defines your tools that will spice up your sex life. Like now, there are toy sex that are nowadays, they're everywhere. So you can get to masturbate your spouse with the toys, the toy sex and all that. Now, I have a couple I was counseling another time, and the lady comes from a different culture, first world, Western culture. But now my male client is from African culture, but more even very grounded spiritually. And okay, now the problem is we do not have a lot of premarital counseling going on out there. We are actually, as counselors, we are trying to sensitize people to have premarital counseling, and thorough good one. I hope the church, will continue doing it because we've been doing very well. But thorough premarital counseling, very, very important. Because some of these things catch up. Like now this thing of the lady felt she should be open to have an open marriage where if your sex life is not going on well, you can go have sex with another person and your husband goes having sex with another person and give each other permission. And she was okay. She wasn't in their home. I think their values were not very grounded. So they're very open, liberal in that sense. The man is like, and even for her, she was feeling like even toy sex, we can masturbate each other with the toy sex. But the man is like, taboo. What do you mean? And of course, and many other things apart from, such as drinking, clubbing, and all that. And the man is like, so with time, the lady felt choked. And there were many other reasons, but she was feeling like, how will I be in this marriage for all this time with this kind of rigid man? Now, those are things that would have been taken care of, probably if there was thorough premarital counseling that had been done as they were preparing for their wedding, because they got married and a big, huge wedding, very nice. And both of them are very beautiful individuals, very, very nice. It's only that now they have different cultural, they have cultural differences and values that were, crashing. So in the kingdom of God, like George says, we have premarital counseling happening so we can preempt some of those concerns we have, because sometimes there's a husband you have and you want oral sex, and he enjoys that. But the lady feels this is too worldly. Those things need to be discussed, because we wouldn't judge the man if that's how he enjoys his sex, but we also wouldn't judge the lady. But how do we come together and agree something that both of us will mutually agree on, with, and that will be both of us will feel comfortable, without the man feeling like, if you can't give me, because you've had some of those situations, if you can't do it this way, I will go look for it somewhere else. Of course, that is not our grounding in the kingdom of God. But there's a grounding you can have is discuss, and if you can't agree, you can get individual support. The man can go to another man, the woman to another woman, even some Christian counselors are very good. And then now you can come together and decide, this is what would be my way forward. So anyway, all in all, I think it's good to be very evaluative after today's class. And you be very, very honest, because we've been given a lot of guidelines on even how to go about this discussion, not in a manipulative way or, telling the other person, know what you had. No, in a teamwork. I love that word that George says. Let's work together as a team and really see what can we do to better this part of our life. What is our stumbling block individually and together, and what can we do to be able to move forward in a healthy space when it comes to this sex life. So thank you for listening. Asante sana.
Great. Wow, that's my powerful, beautiful wife. So basically that's it. There are future topics that perhaps future speakers will be able to address. Even probably touching on some sexual disorders, which the physiological ones we've talked about, the erectile dysfunction or disorder that needs to be addressed, orgasmic disorder or sexual pain disorder. Then there's psychological issues of sexual desire disorder. And there are some that are more probably, you could say, psychiatric. That's how I would name them. They call them paraphilias. Those are people who have a strong desire for what acts that are atypical, that are extreme. Maybe, people who just get aroused by watching other people, making love. They are gratified when they are, I'm trying to think of, they fantasize about being beaten, some of those sadistic acts. Maybe they have to be chained on the bed and somebody, some even will bite you, all those weird, but they're still there in the marriage. They happen. So all those different things can just be addressed. There could be a small percentage of the, of what you go through You know, paraphilias are not things that people normally, we see them in the movies, but people never talk about them. But one of the paraphilia, which is pedophilia there for children, that is something that is quite common and we know affects. And most people who do that are married, by the way. And we've had a few cases even in church. People who are attracted to not just children, but we call them pre-pubertal children. They've not gone through puberty. So they are quite young. We're not about the 17 and 16-year-olds. So those are some of the topics that perhaps in future can be addressed. And that's why at the beginning when I started, I said it's a broad area that will definitely need to be handled in stages. But we appreciate, thank you for the opportunity. Today has been a full day. In the morning, Dr. Julius Nguku preached a powerful sermon on Daniel. Now we've heard what we've heard. I guess you have a great week ahead of us with what you've learned so far. So thank you for the opportunity to let us speak.